Welcome to the SIWIKE Podcast, the only podcast that shares the stuff you didn't know you needed to know about jobs, careers, and life. The SIWIKE Podcast, the stuff I wish I knew earlier.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier podcast. We're here again, joined with one of our guest hosts, Minti, who we thought we'd have a conversation on being yourself and what makes you happy. So I'm not exactly sure where this conversation is going to go, but it's a topic that I think is very important for a lot of folks. And I know people will come to me and have conversations on being yourself, like being authentic and things like that. And then the conversation often turns into happiness and making you happy. So I'd love if you started by sharing a little bit about like being yourself. Like, when was the last time you felt like the most yourself, or the last time you felt the least yourself? And maybe we'll start with that side.
So the time where I felt my most myself is like, I feel like in the present moment right now, like I've definitely, like during COVID, I've definitely just learned more about myself. And I've really just took time to like really like better myself and like understand my feelings and how I feel. So I feel like if I would like define who I am, I'm someone that's like very like positive. I try to look at the positive side of things. I would say like I'm a YouTuber, someone who likes to make videos and entertain people. And I've just learned to just really accept myself and just love myself, because at the end of the day, this is the only body I'm going to be in. And like, this is like, I'm going to be this person on earth, and like everyone is unique in their own way. So like, it's just like at this point, I just have to accept myself. And then I would say when I least felt like myself would be, I would say high school. I feel like in high school, we're all trying to like kind of understand ourselves and figure ourselves out. And you tend to like let other people influence you because you want to fit in with a certain group. So a lot of the time, like I wasn't myself. Like I just tried to be someone I wasn't, just to fit in like with my friends and stuff. So I definitely regret like giving up the gym and like giving up fitness in high school, because I wanted to focus more on my studies. So I'm glad that after I graduated, I got that back, and I got that love for fitness back. But yeah, definitely in high school, I did not feel like I was myself. I really just wanted to fit in.
Yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit more about what some of those fit in stories. And from my perspective, I'd probably echo that too, where like if I go back to the least myself, probably high school. I think that's maybe those teenage hormones or whatever. Part of that's a factor. And then wanting to fit in is definitely one of those things where I think at that age, you're trying to find your tribe, right? Find those people that you really connect with. And actually in kind of digging deep into it, I found that that's one of those ingrained things where like humans are social beings, and we started as like a tribal species, where like the acceptance of people around you is super important, and not being acceptant and outside basically meant near-term death, right? Because if you're to survive on your own in like the I don't know, the Paleolithic time, I don't even know what the time age was, but if you were without your tribe or family, you probably wouldn't survive for very long. So and the unfortunate thing is that I guess emotional state has carried with us right now, because there's really nothing that is out there that's really that dangerous. Like no saber-tooth tigers are going to come out and eat us or whatever, right? The worst thing is like, oh, we weren't invited to a party, or someone said no, or something like that, right? But I think there's something to that where I'd love if folks kind of normalize the emotion, where like we all feel a bit of an outcast in some shape or form, right? Whether it's you're not smart enough, you're too smart, you're sporty, and you're not sporty enough, you're one way or another. There's always extremes, and I'd love if you kind of talk us through a little bit about I guess your fitting in, and then maybe was there a decision where you said, you know what, screw this, I'm not going to even bother? Do you have one of those points in high school or later on?
Definitely after I graduated. Like I guess like after you graduate high school, like you no longer have to really fit in with like the high school like group anymore, because you graduated now. And like when you go to post-secondary, you're kind of like figuring yourself out, and you have like your own kind of your own journey. So I figured out my path. I had like a few different paths in university. Like I had I had the YouTube, like making videos and stuff.
Mhm.
I had the fitness and going to the gym. I also, at that time, loved photography. So that was a big path of mine. And after like graduating, I kind of had to figure out like what path I wanted to take, like what path could be like a career path for me. So I kind of got over the whole photography path. And I decided to just like keep going with the YouTube and the fitness because those were the two paths that made me the happiest. So
Right.
I just like to this day, I just continued with those two paths.
Yeah, and I know we talked at the beginning about being yourself, and then whenever being yourself is there, it's always the topic of being authentic, right?
Yes.
So what's your thoughts about what authenticity means and being yourself or being someone else? What were your thoughts in that realm?
I guess for me, I think being authentic is like being you and not allowing like outside sources to influence that, like not allowing like your family or friends to change your opinions, your morals, and your values, and just really being able to just express yourself authentically and not allowing like anything to like change who you are, like being just confident in who you are and loving who you are and not being afraid to show that.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with someone about like when you're kind of playing a role, trying to fit in and stuff, you're being someone different.
Yes.
But I kind of had the thought that, you know what, if you are being someone different, that's who you are. Someone who's being someone different. So I was like, kind of, like, can you actually be someone else? Because you're only who you are at that given point, and you are like the collection of all your different choices and stuff of that. So that at that given moment, you are choosing to play something that is not normal to your previous behavior or to like what you love or like or your passions or interests or whatever, but you're making that choice. So I just found that as an interesting discussion point or argument that says, you know what, like you are who you are, right? So being true is, I think what you said about continuing to do the things that you enjoy, make you happy and things like that, and not doing it for other people's approval, and you're really doing it for yourself. I think that's the key part. Where who are you doing it for? Is it for yourself? But part of that could be that you are doing it for others, for yourself, because you internally want to make your parents proud or your friends happy or whatever, and there's an element of that. But it really has to be driven for you because you care for them so much, you love them so much that you want to be doing these things for you. One thing that came to mind, I was talking about that. So we talked about being yourself and being happy. So when we talk about happiness, like what is that for you, or what is your definition of happiness?
For me, I guess happiness is just being able to like be positive, just always smiling, I guess, like doing the things that make you smile, that make you feel good inside. And I guess I would say like there's a lot of different things that can make people happy. Like for me personally, what brings me happiness is like creating videos, being able to entertain people, working out. I like meditating and stuff like that. Those can really make me happy. So everyone has like something that can make them happy. And I would define like happiness as just doing the things that you love.
Yeah, and I would have folks kind of reflect on their own definition of happiness, right? So some of the things that I've found out is the difference between things like pleasure and joy, right? So for people to be happy, they can do things that are pleasurable, right? So that eating the bag of chips, the tub of ice cream, the binge watching Netflix or YouTube or whatever, those are pleasurable. But they're not necessarily long-term or sustainable, because if you do that for a long period of time, like it's not going to do you any good for the rest of your life, right? Like an hour or a Friday night, that's fine. But every Friday night or every night, that can be problematic. And then contrasting that a little bit with joy, where sometimes it's the most like frustrating or terrible things, that the hardships that you go through. And then on the other side, there's joy, right? Where you're climbing the mountain, you finished the marathon, where that was an arduous couple of hours running the however many miles or kilometers and stuff. But after that, there's joy in that. So I encourage folks to start finding those different words that talk about happiness and figuring out like what is that for them. And to your
Yes.
point about what makes you happy, to figure out and question what those things are. One point that I want to also talk to you about is you talked about positivity, right?
Yes.
So you're always positive. People that you like, well, are you positive like all the time and you never get angry? So tell us a little bit more about that.
I feel like I've just like growing up, I've just always been like that. Like I love making people laugh, and I just love, like I was always known as like the girl that just always loved making jokes and was always laughing. And I just like always had that, like it's just always been a part of me. I just try to look at the positive side of things. Like I like negativity gets to me sometimes, like obviously like I'm human, but I don't allow it to like bother me too much. Like I know how to kind of make myself happy again by doing certain things that make me happy, like watching Netflix, working out and stuff like that. But I just always try to be positive, because I know like there's a lot of like very like negative and sad things going on in the world right now. So I just try to look at the positive side of things, because there's not a lot of positive people in the world, and I just try to always push that out.
Right, and I think that's why I connect well with you, because I just love positive people, right? And I think the world needs a lot more of that. But I do have a lot of folks where, again, I try to be positive as well. And like when people say, "How are you?" Like most people will say, "Okay," or "I'm fine," but I'll try to say, "I'm fantastic," "I'm amazing," I'm phenomenal," that sort of thing, because it kind of ups the level, and then it changes people's day. But people struggle with the fact that, well, you're trying to be positive. And if people struggle, I actually encourage folks to change positivity a little bit to optimism, right? And that's slightly different in the sense that you could be experiencing kind of negative emotions, but the optimism part of it is to say, you know what, but I believe things will get better, and there's going to be a positive outlook on it. So you may not be necessarily positive, but there is a positive lesson to be learned, or a positive outcome that can happen, or a positive direction that you could head in. And by doing that, you kind of build the positivity inertia in your favor, so that you can keep on doing that. Are there any sort of I don't know, tactics or methods or anything that you've used in the past to kind of pull you out of that negativity? I think we were talking off air that you don't really get angry. So what are some of the things that you tell yourself, you talk to yourself, or how do you rescue yourself out of those challenging times?
I definitely like I used to like read a lot of like articles and different blogs about like being happy and being optimistic and that stuff. So that has definitely helped me. But I also just like, I think it's so important to like have moments where you talk to yourself, like, and just really like reflect. Like sometimes like if you're feeling down or you're feeling stressed out, just take a few minutes, like 5 to 10 minutes, and just like really like ask yourself, are you okay? Like what's going on? Like, and just like try to figure out like some solutions or like what you can do. And also talking to the people who love you. Like, I think that's very important. Just like really expressing how you feel to people is very important, because at the end of the day, like we don't know how you feel. You have to tell us how you feel, because we can't read minds. So you definitely have to express yourself and let people know how you're feeling. And I think that could really help you in just being more positive and just feeling more happy inside.
Yeah, a couple of things that came to mind as you were talking about that is one, the Jim Rohn quote that says, you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So if you can surround yourself by positive people, then you will more likely be positive, right? If you surround yourself with negative people, then you will likely be more negative, right? That's just kind of how things are. And it doesn't mean that you have to kind of fire your friends or get rid of them right away. But what you may want to do is spend an extra hour with that positive friend and 1 hour less with that negative friend, right? And then see if you can continue to gravitate to that. And another thing that comes to mind is, well, the person that you spend the most time with is yourself, right? Yeah. So hopefully you can kind of reflect and grow and learn, so that you can kind of move away from the kind of that negativity and the positivity. And it's a process. So for however old you are, so if you're 20, 30, 40, you've had 20, 30, 40 years of being negative, right? So you almost have to spend that long to undo it. Now there are faster ways to do it, so it doesn't take you the same amount of time. But it is a process. So you can't expect that being a negative person for 20 years, you'll automatically be happy in a day, right? So it might take you months, a year, but with that constant repetition and consistency, then you'll get to that point. And then
Yeah.
the third thing that kind of came to mind is that being open and
Mhm.
a little bit vulnerable, sharing your thoughts and opinions. And actually, it's okay to not be okay, right? In the
Yeah.
sense that a lot of people, they have to say, I'm fine, I'm okay, or whatever, versus you can say, you know what, I've actually had a pretty terrible morning, right? Because of this.
Mhm.
And sometimes you need a little bit of venting and all that. But don't spend too long on it, because then you can kind of go down that downward spiral. But if you have a couple of folks that are around you to kind of pick you up, I think that's an amazing place to be in to help you kind of lift yourself up. So
Yeah. And
um,
definitely like the people around you can like definitely influence the way you feel. And even like the things you watch, like certain like shows and media that can also influence the way you feel. So like just try to like watch more positive things, like more positive like podcasts or something that will like uplift you. That can really help too.
yeah, I think that's a good point where, I mean, the quote focuses on like the 5 people you spend the most time with, but
Mhm.
those people might not actually be like people, right? It might
Yeah.
actually be like a podcast host or a YouTube
Mhm.
host or whatever. And I actually have cut out news from my
Yeah.
from my kind of daily activities because
Mhm.
it's all negative. There's so
It
many
is.
challenging things where someplace in the world it's horrible, right? Even
Mhm.
though right now, like the history shows that this is probably the best time in the history of mankind to have ever lived, right? All the
Yeah.
conveniences and stuff, especially if you're one of the people with the privilege of being able to listen to a podcast like this, like there's
Mhm.
a lot of good stuff that's going on for you right
Yeah.
now. Right?
Mhm.
Now there are other parts of the world where they're a little bit more challenged, but at the same time, like take that 100 or 200 years ago, or even thousands of years ago, they'll be in much worse shape than
Yeah.
than they were right now. So surrounding yourself with that positivity, one was the people, and then content and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've heard something as simple as like cleaning up around your house, right? Because a
Yeah.
cluttered room, a cluttered house, a cluttered desk, or whatever, kind of speaks to kind of a cluttered mind as well. So
Mhm.
clean it up, then clean up your mind, and it kind of relates to cleaning the environment around you. So
Yeah.
the opposite is true too, where if you clean up the environment, then your mind tends to be a little bit more free, open, and easier um, as well.
Yeah, I know
So
for me, when I have like a clean room, like I feel so good inside. Like I just feel happy. Everything's clean, everything looks nice. So yeah, definitely do that.
yeah, and probably keeping a couple of habits there where once the room is clean, well, what
Mhm.
can you do to keep it clean, right?
Yeah.
Because eventually it does get dirty, but
Mhm.
maybe usually it takes a month for it to get dirty. So next time you clean a little bit more, so it takes 2 months and then 3 months, and that way it just stays cleaner longer. I think is
Yeah.
important.
And you can make chores fun too, like just by like playing like music you enjoy. I love doing that. Just like dancing to music while you clean. That's really fun too.
Yeah, I actually was chatting with someone yesterday, and they mentioned that well, they don't do like meditation or reading or something, but what
Mhm.
she committed to herself to do is that every day she would basically dance to a song, right,
Yeah.
and spend like 3 minutes rocking out, dancing out on
Mhm.
one of her favorite songs, and that's her form of meditation. That's her
Yeah.
form of kind of release. That's her form of kind of calming herself down, and that works, right? And if you're
Yeah.
not a dancer, find what that is for you, right? So whether
Mhm.
it's reading a book, whether it's cleaning, whether it's spending time
Yeah.
with someone else, find what that outlet is, and then learn from others. Because if you ask other people, they have different ways of coping, and seeing if you can help each other as well.
Yeah. Like just finding the hobby you enjoy at the end of the day. Like everyone, some people have music, some people have reading, some people have watching Netflix, working out. Like just finding the hobby you enjoy and just doing that whenever you feel like you're getting a little angry or you feel like you're a little stressed out. Do that hobby that you enjoy.
Yeah, I found that if people focus a little bit more on their energy levels throughout the day, right?
Mhm.
Are they at a high? Like, are you at a 9 out of 10? Are you at a 2 out of 10 or whatever? And when you're dip below kind of the 5, right? See if you can do something that energizes you a little bit. Sometimes it's as simple as what you just did, like grab a drink, right? You might be
Yeah.
thirsty. You might be hungry, right? So don't get into that hangry mode where it's
Yeah.
the physical emotion that's taking a toll on you.
Mhm.
But then sometimes it's like thoughts and things like that. So I'm a huge advocate of like meditative practices. I think you mentioned
Mhm.
that,
Yeah.
where I've been more consistent with that. And I was the type of person, well, I have too much to do, I can't meditate. But
Mhm.
the expression where if you don't have 10 minutes to meditate, that's why you need an hour to meditate, because there's probably too much in your head to go through. And start with, I found the easiest way to start is with breaths, like deep breaths. Just sit there and take 10 deep breaths in a row, right? 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out, 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out, however many you can manage. And just like a minute of deep breathing can do wonders for that. And that's your meditative practice, right? It's a little bit more on the mindfulness side, but it can definitely help. And that hopefully will help you be happy. And I wanted to circle a little bit back to that aspect of being yourself, right? So being yourself is again those things that make you happy, those things that you love. What would you say to someone who I guess is living a different life, where maybe mom and dad want them to do something else, or their friends or family want them to be something else? Like, what sort of suggestions or guidance would you have for someone in that state?
So I was definitely in that state of mind, like growing up, because my parents wanted me to be like an accountant and that stuff. But like, I guess like, I don't want to say like you get older and like things change, but like that's what happened for me. Like you just like after I graduated high school, I just started to have like my own mindset, and like I started to like express myself more to my parents, because at the time, like I was kind of afraid to like tell them I didn't want to do this, I didn't want to do that. But like once you get older, you kind of you gain the confidence to like express yourself and tell your parents that like look, this is what I want to do, and like this is what makes me happy and stuff. So like I guess like getting older, you just realize that you just start to feel confident about yourself and start not being afraid to express yourself and not allowing like outside sources to influence that.
Yeah, and what I took from that is, I mean, there's some people who naturally have that perspective, but many of us don't, right? So I would agree with you that I probably had that, where it was probably not a verbalized expectation of certain things, but it was more, well, you want to be as successful as you can, and yeah, we'll let you do what you want. But in my head, I felt, well, no, they really want me to do this sort of stuff. Right? So I think what you said about getting older and eventually it starts clicking in, and maybe it's because of different life experiences, you're exposed to more, where you can actually say, you know what, it's not as bad, or it's better than I thought. One of the things that came to mind was being able to like just plan out your future, right? In the sense that when your parents have a plan for you, right? If you say that you don't want to do it, they're not usually open to that conversation. But if they say, well, and this is what I want to do instead, and this is my plan to get there, they're usually more open to that conversation, because at least you've thought it out. You planned it out. They can actually say, oh yeah, I see how you do it. You don't want to be that accountant, the doctor, the lawyer, or whatever. Like I from their perspective, that's where stability is. That's where safety is. That's where happiness and like a very useful and productive life is. But if you can find another path where, well, you want to be a YouTuber, well, how many of them are actually successful? How will you be successful otherwise, right? And if you can show them that plan on how to get there, then oftentimes they're a little bit more open and receptive to that process.
That's very true, actually, yeah.
And so we gave folks a little bit of understanding about being yourself. So part of that is like really focusing on the things that make you happy. And then from that conversation, you kind of said, well, what is happy to you, right? Is it on the pleasure side? Is it on the joy side? For some people, that happiness is also helping and giving back, right? So it's the impact that you have for folks as well. We talked a little bit about positivity and optimism, right? So that if you are surrounded by positivity and optimism, then you will likely be more positive and optimistic, and things tend to go your way a little bit more. And then we talked about surrounding yourself with other people, and uplifting podcasts or YouTube videos or things like that. And I think we'll probably close off with a little bit of like, what are some other things that you might suggest for folks to be themselves, to make themselves happy? What are some of the parting suggestions that you might have for folks?
Really just find something that brings you joy. Like I know like for a fact, there's something out there that can bring you joy and make you happy. So just find that one thing, because once you find that, you'll just feel good about yourself. You'll feel you'll be able to like express yourself and just be happy about yourself. And honestly, like whatever you're into, there's a group out there that is also into it, and you can find some like really, really awesome friends that way too. So I think that's a really good thing to do. And also, I think even journaling, that's a really big thing too. Like if you're ever feeling like stressed out or angry, like I think just writing down your feelings can also help you a lot.
So one of the things that came to mind is for the folks that actually don't know what they love, they don't know what they're passionate about and things like that. One of the things that comes to mind is to explore, right? So
Yes.
oftentimes you don't just wake up and be passionate about something, right? There's a length of time, some exposure to it that happens. So I encourage folks to find and follow the things that they're curious about, right? So usually it starts with curiosity, and then you do it a little bit more, and then it turns into an interest, right? And you do it a little bit more, and then it turns into excitement, right? And you do it more, and then eventually it turns into a passion, right? Now, sometimes that scale is over years or decades. Sometimes that scale is over a weekend, right? You can find that thing really quickly, and just realize that also your passions could change, right? What you like when you were in your teenage years versus as a young adult or even further along in your life, they could be different. So don't be surprised if what you were passionate about when you were younger isn't what you're passionate about now, because people change and their circumstances. Some people don't, right? And so if you're lucky to have that passion that keeps with you forever, then consider yourself lucky. But just being aware of that. And I love the fact that you mentioned journaling. I think in some of my previous podcasts, I've talked about the 5-2-2-1 method, which is essentially 5 minutes a day, 2 minutes on what drained you, right? 2 minutes on what energized you, and then 1 minute trying to figure out how do I minimize the draining stuff and maximize the energizing stuff. And then when you start noticing the patterns, this is where you start doubling down on the things like I really love, and this is where you end up finding, okay, this is who I am. And what makes me happy. And one thing that I encourage you to do is also examine the labels that you give yourself, right? Where you consider yourself like the YouTuber, the smart one, this whatever, right?
Yeah.
Well, they're a label that you gave yourself at a point in time, but do they continue to serve you? Do they continue to help you? And you can change, right? None of these are tattoos that you have to keep. These are ones that you can change on a regular basis.
Yeah. At the end of the day, life is all about change and evolving. So like at this point in life, you might be this, like you might be into this, you might be into that. Like at different points in your life, you're going to find new passions and you're going to find new things that you find joy in. So yeah.
Yeah, and then what I'd probably leave folks with is to take the time, right? So allocate the time weekly, daily, and just say, okay, how am I going to like reflect and figure out who I am? How am I going to make sure that I show up and be myself in the world? And then how do I make sure I achieve and get those things that make me happy, whatever my definition of happiness is? Any sort of parting thoughts or challenges for folks that are listening for you?
At the end of the day, you are your own person. You're unique. Nobody has the same experiences you have. Nobody has made the same mistakes. Like nobody in the world is you. So like, don't be afraid to just accept yourself and love yourself for who you are, because nobody else has this, and you're unique. You're unique on this world and in this world, and like, just be happy with it.
That's great. I think that's a perfect place to end the podcast. And thanks, Minty, for sharing in the conversation, and looking forward to having you back in a future episode.
Thanks for having me. And don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and if you're on the podcast, like.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for joining us on the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, the podcast. If you like the podcast, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you found this podcast. And if you can give us a review, that would be very appreciated. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn at Lukidanu, LUKIDANU, and the same on most social media platforms. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.